Good afternoon. We are Team 5. My name is Tammy Chang, and these are my colleagues Joshua Raj and Carson Ralphs. And we'd like to introduce Dr. Be Well, one of the physicians of Littleton Health. He doesn't know it yet, but there is something coming that might completely change how he practices. And that is the Medicare Access and Chip Reauthorization Act, or MACRA. Under MACRA, the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, predicts that 81% of small physician practices will receive a negative reimbursement. Our purpose today is to help your organization understand MACRA in order to help Dr. Be Well and the physicians of LGH. Although MACRA may already seem daunting, we are actually very optimistic in the opportunity it brings in improving the lives of B-City on their pursuit for quality care, aligning perfectly with the mission of LGH. I will introduce MACRA and its effects, Josh will present our strategy and its impacts, and Carson will give a roadmap into the future. Okay, let's navigate our way through this journey from volume to value. So what is MACRA? MACRA redesigns physician reimbursement for Medicare Part B payments. It repeals the Sustainable Growth Rate Formula, or SGR, and replaces it with a near zero growth on Part B payments. Unlike SGR, MACRA actually links quality to payment by offering physicians two tracks: the merit-based incentive payment system and the alternative payment models, both of which will be referred to as MIPS and APM throughout the rest of our conversation. Under MIPS, each physician tax identification number, or TIN, will be given a composite score from 1 to 100 based on performance. The composite score has 4 categories, 3 of which are already existing reporting systems. The new category consists of metrics such as care coordination and patient safety. CMS predicts that 85 to 90% of physician practices will choose this track. These are the 6 advanced payment models qualifying for the APM track. Advanced APMs differ from other APMs because they offer 2-sided risk: higher bonuses as well as greater loss. Advanced APMs also have more stringent qualifications, such as the required use of a certified electronic health record technology. Although CMS predicts that only 9% of physicians will qualify for this track, MACRA actually pushes hospitals and physicians to eventually enter APMs. Now that the basics of MACRA have been outlined, let's take a look at Littleton Health. LGH consists of 3 physician groups: the Primary Care Network, LGS, the Specialty Care Network, LGS, and the Primary Care Network, LGPC, and the Community, LGCN. The 3 groups operate under different TINs with incongruent EMR systems. Upon learning about MACRA, 67% of physicians actually prefer hospital employment over individual practices. So how can LGH help their small physician practices thrive while they remain independent but not autonomous? Well, MACRA will have many impacts on different areas of operations. Our strategy will leverage the size of LGH in order to centralize IT infrastructure to support the physicians as well as the MACRA push towards APMs. This seems like a lot of work. However, physicians choosing not to report will experience a negative 4% reimbursement adjustment in 2019, potentializing to a negative 9% in 2022. Now that we have seen what MACRA affects, let's take a look at who. There are internal stakeholders as well as external. Since MACRA directly targets physician reimbursement, the physicians are our main stakeholder for our strategy. 50% of physicians have never heard of MACRA, and 32% are unaware and unfamiliar of it. So, because of this, MACRA education is crucial. Now, how does LGH help Dr. Be Well survive this cultural change? By optimizing clinical, operational, and financial performance? Let's turn to Josh for the detailed steps.
We've created a 4-part plan tailored to your organization to provide you the best opportunity to have success. We will start by addressing the stakeholder education challenge with a provider education plan. Next, we'll focus on an effective strategy to help you maximize MIPS. Our third recommendation revolves around increasing the importance of IT and enhancing your EMR. Lastly, with opportunities for higher bonuses, LGH needs to begin moving towards the APM track, and LGCN provides a perfect platform to build an MSSP ACO model. Now, this legislation overwhelmingly affects providers, so addressing those numbers that Tammy provided needs to happen first with a provider education plan. Step one is creating that provider education team, consisting of an IT champion, a quality champion, an HIM specialist, and 3 physician champions, 1 from each of your groups. Once created, you can begin implementation with Macro Week 1. During this week, high-level macro overviews will be given via live webinar sessions hosted by this educational team. A macro hotline will also be established to take any questions outside of the webinar platform. Now, we realize provider time is extremely precious, so offering multiple opportunities for engagement through a Macro Week 2 is imperative. Here, tailored recorded videos will be sent out to your physicians depending on their group. Also, live town hall sessions will be hosted by the executive team and the provider education team to provide yet another opportunity to answer any questions. This plan is simple yet effective and can be rolled out multiple times throughout 2017 to increase awareness and education. Developing an appropriate MIP strategy would be next. Due to the various weights of these categories, it's important to focus on the most impactful ones first and not necessarily all 4 at one time. Because quality is 60% of your first year reimbursement, it needs to come first. Here, each TIN is required to report 6 of 200 metrics. It's important to report ones your organization is already doing well at because there's a comparison feature here with the highest performers receiving the highest score. For example, LGPC is already reporting 5 PQRS measures, so it's just to your advantage to use these. Improvement activities is next. Here, each TIN is required to report 4 of 90 activities. There is no comparison feature here, so these are going to be your quick win points, where you will receive all points for simply reporting. After focusing on improvement activities, ACI is next. This is 25% and again has no comparison, so simply reporting the 9 requirements will again get you full credit. However, unlike meaningful use, partial credit is given for reporting less than the required 9. Now, only after you focus on these 3 should you focus on cost and resource use, because this does not impact your first year reimbursement and is based solely on claims data. Following this strategy gives you the best chance to reach the highest composite score and therefore the highest bonus payments. Now, timely and accurate reporting is also pivotal to your success with MIPS, which brings us to our third strategic recommendation, which is improving your EMR system and increasing the importance of IT within your organization. And this starts by moving your CIO out from underneath your CFO and giving IT a larger voice in the organization, as well as hiring the 2 new staff required to better effectively manage this upgrade. Improving your EMR to automatically capture and report data and tweaking it to fit those ACI requirements will provide better performance and quality of care for both LGPC and LGS. The total 2-year investment for this will be around $2.25 million. But as we will see when we get to the finances, the benefits can far outweigh these costs. Now, we've spoken a lot about MIPS, and rightfully so. But the loosely affiliated LGCN provides a great opportunity to move towards the APM track for many reasons, including higher bonuses and the potential to leverage this model to create beneficial partnerships with insurance agencies in the city. When developing an MSSP ACO model, there are multiple tracks to choose from. However, once chosen, you're locked into that track for 3 years. Because LGH does not have any prior experience with the APM models, we actually suggest starting with track 1 because there's no downside risk. And while this does not qualify for advanced APM under macro, it does qualify as a MIPS preferred organization, meaning it has the best chance to receive the highest bonuses under the MIPS platform. After starting with track 1, you can begin to move to track 2 after that 3-year period, which provided you the opportunity to work best with LGCN to best learn how to collaborate and work together, so that when you do make this transition, you can avoid the downside risk associated with this, realize the up to 60% savings, and receive that 5% annual bonus that comes with qualifying as an advanced APM under macro. Now, our strategies are going to have multiple positive effects for your organization, starting with the finances. I want to bring your attention back to this graph. We took your 2016 Part B reimbursement drew it out over the 6-year period to 2022, assuming the initial bonuses seen here in gray. We then took that and compared it to your reimbursement for doing nothing over that same time period. Took the difference between those two numbers and subtracted out our annual additional expenses associated with our strategy to show you your potential additional profit each year. As you can see, profit starts off negative, but quickly recovers and reaches over $2 million in 2022. Following our strategy and enhancing your EMR, you'll be able to at least realize these numbers, resulting in a net present value of $3.8 million, assuming a modest 8% discount rate. Now, of course, there are other positive impacts on LGH that are non-financial. With this increased focus on performance and quality, LGH is going to begin to be able to recruit and retain more top provider talent, see improved quality of life in their Medicare population, and coupled with this increased focus on IT, can see some positive culture shifts in the organization. Lastly, really getting out ahead of MACRA and truly understanding it through the provider education plan, you can begin to see an improved competitive advantage for LGH. For more on how we plan to implement this plan, I'd like to pass it over to Carson.
The implementation of these strategies should begin right away. In April, we recommend creating the education team, moving the CIO to the executive level, and hiring the 2 additional IT staff. In May, LGH should divide the EMR enhancement into 3 steps. The first step would be to develop and maintain an automated reporting solution that captures all quality metrics for LGPC. The second step would be to replicate that technology for the LGS EMR system. We anticipate these 2 steps will conclude in October 2018. The third step would be to adjust the LGPC and LGS EMR systems to satisfy the MIPS requirements for advancing care information. This step would begin in 2018 and conclude in 2019. Regarding the strategy to transition the LGCN into an ACO, this would be accomplished through bringing the physicians on as employees and then applying to become an MSSP Track 1 before the end of 2017. While 2017 is the inaugural year for MACRA, it's not too late to qualify for partial reimbursement. This can be done through using each physician group and selecting 6 quality metrics and measuring them for at least 90 days. Looking ahead, I'll now share some highlights of the actions we recommend you pursue within the next 5 years. The deadline to submit the partial 2017 data is March 2018. We also recommend that LGH implement Lean Six Sigma tactics this year in order to decrease costs and optimize resource use. In 2019, you will receive your first partial reimbursement from MIPS from the 2017 data. This reimbursement should be analyzed to identify opportunities for improvement activities. From 2020 to 2022, the newly formed LGCN should transition to an MSSP Track 2, and LGH should explore other advanced APMs as well, possibly through arrangements with local payers and providers. With that said, there is still some ambiguity surrounding MACRA and its implementation, and so we recommend you revisit the strategy and your progress each year. Now, let's recap. We began our discussion today with Dr. Bewell and how MACRA has the potential to disrupt how he and your other physicians practice medicine. We've discussed how MACRA can instead serve as a catalyst for quality through creating an education team, enhancing the EMR, transitioning to MIPS, and developing the LGCN into an ACO. We are confident that these strategies are just what Dr. Bewell and the rest of LGH need to be successful, because each one aligns with at least 2 of LGH's strategic priorities and will allow you to recruit and retain top talent, remain the preferred choice for healthcare, be financially sustainable, and be pivotal in B-City's path towards a healthier population. Armed with these strategies, you will be able to utilize MACRA as an opportunity to further improve lives through your never-ending quest for quality healthcare. We appreciate your time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We will transition to 5 minutes of Q&A.
I have a quick question if I could start. So I think you did a really great job outlining the changes that we
we have to make as an organization around IT upgrades and reporting requirements. But for the individual provider, what changes are you requiring for their clinical practice, for their documentation? What are you asking of them?
For each provider represented by Dr. Bigwell, they will be able to use the enhanced tools from the EMR to experience very minimal adjustment to how they treat their patients. And with the additional support that the enhanced technology will give them, they'll be able to navigate through the implementation of MACRA successfully.
Okay, so what is the education then primarily focused on for the physicians?
It will be tailored towards LGH's strategy for each physician group.
Yeah, so we will begin with the high-level overview in MACRA 1 because of the numbers that Tammy provided, which 50% of physicians have never heard of MACRA and 33% have no idea what it is, even if they've heard about it. So we need to address that situation first. And then the second week is more tailored videos, so you can see how the primary care will be affected versus how the specialty care will be affected, versus how the community network will be affected.
Aside from education, what other needs do you have to engage physicians and keep them engaged long term on some of these initiatives?
I think the education plan that we have for the physicians, we just want to keep them in the same mindset as the whole company is. We see patterns of kind of siloed effects between management and the physicians themselves. So we're trying to make it so that the physicians are aware of MACRA's implementations, how it will affect the reporting, but not necessarily their day-to-day operations when they're dealing with the patients. So hopefully making their operations easier, allowing them to focus on the patient more, but allowing them to understand the changes that are going on that they might not necessarily be managing, but that IT would be helping out with.
And that could be accomplished through the MACRA hotline that you mentioned, and sending out those videos to re-engage them and encourage them to learn more about MACRA.
Yes, good job, guys. That was a great overview of MACRA and some of the implications. I'm curious, you talked about how the community network is sort of more loosely affiliated. Have you seen particular challenges with deploying an ACO strategy there with such a loosely affiliated group?
So there are certainly challenges with that because really there's no back and forth between LGH and LGCN currently. But after reading about MACRA, there was 67% of physicians actually would rather be employed by a large organization than a small one. So that would be one of the main things that we bring to them to try and get them on board with this ACO is that we will employ you rather than you dealing with your small individual practices. We will then push you on our EMR, which will make reporting to get these higher bonuses a lot easier for you. So those are some of the things that we would approach them with to kind of deal with that big challenge of them having to now become employed rather than being independent.
Nice job, and I agree with really good overview of MACRA. You mentioned one of the non-financial impacts is developing a competitive advantage. Could you speak a little more about how you think that'll play out in your future?
Yeah, so when we say improving competitive advantage, we mean within the marketplace, so versus the other two major players. And so a lot of institutions are currently behind on MACRA and understanding what it is and really trying to create a strategy to deal with it. So we believe that by getting out ahead and really understanding it will give you an improved competitive advantage because with this increased focus on quality and performance, you'll be able to recruit and retain talent, see better outcomes, have more positive culture shifts, all leading to a competitive advantage in the end for this organization in this arena. So granted, Medicare Part B is not a large chunk of your reimbursement, but it is enough to create sort of a movement within the market, especially because LGH's volumes are currently decreasing.
Did you build any volume increases into your?
We did assume a 1% volume increase